post it on YouTube. I don't know what this is. Why it doesn't work. Okay, so for today, welcome. Sorry for that. I am still trying to figure out my mic, trying to figure out the setup on on YouTube, as well as Facebook, right? I am doing this alone for now. I don't have a team yet. So the technical side of it, I don't really know, right? I can edit the videos, but to set up the sound, I don't know yet how to do that. So I'm getting there. Have grace with me. So today, as the title says, we're talking about types of childhood adversity. Let me put my beacons.ai/oracles, place. I might use some products that you might want. You go to beacons.ai/oracles, place. So if you checked my profile anywhere on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, you will see that I have a new banner, right? And the banner says avoiding childhood trauma instead of healing childhood trauma. Now, the reason that I have that change is because on Twitter, last week I posted healing childhood trauma. And then someone, a guy, suggested that, opened my mind to the fact that it might be better to use avoiding childhood trauma, which means what? Preventing childhood trauma from happening. And he was saying, particularly in the Black community, right? In the African community, to avoid it. Most of us have already gone through it. But then how can we understand not to give it to our children? And I think that was amazing. And then he was talking about the power of Black love in our community. Now, when it comes to, talking about Black love, it is kind of difficult for me in a way, right? So I have to be honest about it, right? Because there are a lot of people who are in Black love, who have Black partners, but they are facing a lot of adversity. They are being abused. And my mother is an example of that. My mother is in Black love. She has always been with a Black man, with an African man, but she never healed herself. And so, and I have to say that, I will be talking about Black love in this topic as well, pairing up with the adverse childhood experiences. But I also have to say that my daughter is biracial. Her father is from Poland. And it was, to be honest, part of my idea of not being like my mother, right? Of finding a different way of living, right? Of thinking that I need to be around different people. I need to be with a different person to see if there's any difference, right? If there's any difference, who can I be with where I am not going to experience what my mother's experiencing, and I'm not going to be like my mother. And this is why I was with, right, different races at some point in my life, not just white, but different races. But then I realized that I had to heal, because if I didn't heal, it didn't matter where I went. It didn't matter who I was with. I was going to attract the same man in different sneakers, like we call it. The same man in different sneakers, like men that remind me of my father, emotionally unavailable, men who I have to run after their love instead of them coming towards me, right? So I say that it doesn't matter who you are with. If you as a woman are not healed, if you as a man are not healed, you, wherever you go, there you are. I like that saying, and it's a book that you can read. Wherever you go, there you are. There are men as well who went through adverse childhood experiences who say the same thing that I said, right? I'm not going to be with a Black woman because they are masculine, they are this, all the stereotypes, forgetting that they, as a man, also have their own childhood traumas that they need to walk through. And then they go find a different race, the passport bros, leave America, go somewhere else, or leave Africa and go somewhere else. But then they're having the same issues. Why? Because we haven't healed our childhood trauma, which is why I talk about the things that I talk about. Creating a home for those who never felt at home. Raising awareness on mental health, spirituality, and education, because we have been told that education is just going to school. But we have seen people who dropped out of school and they are more intelligent, more spiritually aligned, a lot more, how to call it, they feel a whole lot better in themselves and who they are, much more than the people who have all the degrees, right? So when we say education, what do we mean by education? Let's go straight in. Types of childhood adversity, and we'll start from the first one. And there are three types. We're talking about three types of ACEs. And ACEs means adverse childhood experiences, and there's a number to it. We go with abuse. Yeah, no sugarcoating here. We're going to say it like it is. The first one is abuse. And abuse, we have three forms here. And it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. I have went through all three. So I speak from experience and I speak from studying it as well. Physical abuse. There's this thing where our parents think that when you hit a child, they listen. No, when you hit a child, the child doesn't listen. At the moment that you hit the child just does what you want them to do. Not because they are listening to you, but maybe they don't want you to hit them. And they do it not because they are learning, but they just do it. And then you turn around and the child continue doing what they want to do. Also, you have children who are considered radical, who are considered a rascal, the rebels, right? And most of those children, their entire lives, somebody was always physically abusing them, hitting them, whooping them, whatever name you want to call them, beating them. I am one of those children. And I've been called all those names. I've been called a radical. I've been called a rascal. I've been called a child who never listens. But it's not because I didn't want to listen. It's because first I didn't know how to listen. Nobody was listening to me. Let's start from there. The child learns to listen from the parents. If the parents are not listening to the child doesn't know how to listen, because nobody is listening. Nobody is showing the child how to listen, to say, this is how you listen. You sit down and you listen to your child. Make the child feel heard. Now, if you don't do it and you expect your child to listen to you, how exactly would that go? So I've talked about this several times that, my entire childhood from age 5, as far as I can remember, most of my childhood is a blur because of the sheer amount of pain that I went through. But from age 5, that's when I started experiencing being hit. From age 5 all the way to when I was 13, 14. When I was 14, 15, I think all that time I was being hit. My grandmother, God rest her soul, I love her very well. It started with her. She stopped eventually because she got older. My mother did so as well, but then I'll talk about my mother in emotional abuse because she was more on the emotional side. My uncle was on the physical side, whom when I turn and our eyes meet, just like I'm looking at you on the camera, just like I'm looking at you on the camera, our eyes meet, he would think that I am belittling him. And that calls for a whooping, that calls for a beating. I was hit nearly every week. Every week, there was somebody who hit me, probably my uncle. And I'm not just talking about just a slap. We call this bitilaho in my language, in Wolof, like that, bitilaho. I'm not just talking about that, or just somebody who slaps you like that. No, I'm talking about a belt, somebody using a belt, the head of the belt. I'm talking about the wire, a wire, somebody continuously beating you with a wire. I'm talking about, there's something we call number belt, which is like a belt and it's made of leather, where some parents use that to hit the child, right? I'm talking about these things. I remember my father hitting me in my head with a metal spoon for not making his tea. Exactly, right? Being hit for not making the tea right. Being hit for maybe breaking something. Being hit for cleaning as a child, and it's not clean to their expectation. Being hit for any reason. These are people who have their own pain and their own hurt as children, and they never healed, they never looked into it. So what they do, they pour it into their child, into their children, right? They pour it onto us. So for us to avoid childhood trauma, we have to look at what did we go through as a child. You don't just say, my mother hit me, or my father hit me, or this is how I was raised, so this is how I am going to raise you, which is what my mother told me. This is how I was raised, right? But I'm looking at her like, you are my mother, but I don't want to be like you. So even though this is how you were raised, I can see that it is not the right way to raise a child. Right? So, which is why I say creating a home for those who never felt at home. I never felt at home. I remember in my college here in New York, I met a girl, my dad too, who said, yes, had 7 boys on abuse. Yeah, yeah. Our parents are used to saying that this is how I was raised. This is how I know to raise you. Right. This is how you know to raise your child, because that is the way that you were raised. But then if you step back to look at the way that I am being raised, or the way that I was raised by my parents, has that worked for me? Even if it works for you, are you happy about the way you were raised before you raise your children like that? And that brings me to what I was trying to say, right? I met someone, a lady in my former college, in New York, and we are both from Africa, and we were talking about parents hitting their children. And I was saying, because I started advocating for mental health awareness as far as I can remember without really knowing that's what I was doing. So I was telling her, right? You don't hit your child. That doesn't make the child disciplined. It hurts the child. It breaks the child's soul. So you never hit your child. And she was against that. She's like, no, 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 you have to hit your child because children don't listen. And she was telling me how she was hit as a child and it works for her. And I'm looking at her thinking, no, it didn't work for you. Look at you. Look at you and look at me. We're here in a public college. Not that there's anything wrong with public school, but there's everything wrong with public school at the same time. We're sitting here, right? We're trying to move forward. We cannot move forward. We are just inundated with trauma. And you are sitting here telling me that your children hitting you and beating you to death worked for you. So you are going to do that to your children? I closed the conversation because I knew that was a person I cannot relate to and I cannot speak to. So I just went, right? The second one, emotional abuse. Now, these are things that we think if we do to our children, we are disciplining them from any parts of the world. No, you're not disciplining your children. Some people say, I'm not going to do gentle parenting. Now, I don't like labels, even though we need to use labels, we have to use them. Even the name Empress is a label, even though you can embody that, right? I don't advocate for any type of parenting. All I'm saying is that look at yourself, look at your upbringing. If you could change anything, what would you change? Can you change that for your child right now? If you are not happy with yourself and the way that you are, why would you raise your child the way that you were raised? Emotional abuse. My environment most times is very triggering for me, which is why I am ready to leave this environment. And it's not all of Brooklyn, right? I love Brooklyn. I love Brooklyn. I love New York. I love the vibe of New York. Where I am in Brooklyn, I particularly love this place because it's Black, it's African. I love motorcycles, I love supercars, I love fast cars, right? These are my guilty pleasures. I love hearing the sound of the motorcycle, vrr, 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 right? Even the supercars, like the guys change the engines and they do race cars. I love these things. It's part of my shadow. It's part of my toxicity. I love all of this, right? But one thing about the neighborhood, right? There's a lot of emotional abuse where you're walking around and you're hearing parents continuously cursing their children out. But you can see that these parents themselves need healing. Yesterday, we were at the park. If you check my accounts, YouTube, anywhere, Facebook, Instagram, you see that I was wearing a yellow dress with my white head tie, and the white head tie represents the high priestess. And I was outside in the park, sitting on the grass, drinking my NutriBreast while meditating for a little bit with my crystals, there was a lady who I can tell she abuses substances, like I will talk about that, mental illness and all of that. And it was a group of people, and she was talking, trying to be the strong Black woman, even though you can see that she's not in her right mind. And her child came over and they talked, and then at some point she was telling the child, you want to fight? You want to fight? And I'm like, wow. But these are things that I also heard growing up. You want to fight? Right? You want to challenge me? Your child is never challenging you unless you are always challenging your child, unless you taught your child how to challenge. If not, your child is never challenging you. Even, I said when we come to emotional abuse, I will talk a little bit about, my mother. And I hope that she can watch this and hear what I'm saying, that it's not hate, it's not blame, it's not me trying to disrespect her, it's not me trying to put our business out there. It's me saying that something needs to change. We tell our children a lot of things, right? If you look at my last video that I did, I talked about how words is a spell. What you speak on your children is what your children will know, is what your children will believe. What you speak on yourself is what you will believe, right? Because that's the words you use. You call your child stupid. You call your child unintelligent. You call your child lazy. You call your child a prostitute, like I was called, right? You call your child bad, which is why it is so important that you either listen to or read the book Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGraw. I can't pronounce the last name. Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And I'm going to paraphrase. It has been a while. I haven't listened to it. I should go back as well and listen to it, where she was talking about how during slavery, in order for the Black mother, for the African mother, to safeguard their child, to make sure that their child is not taken away from them, they have to dumb down their children to the master to make it seem as if, right, the child is no good. We see it even now in our community, both in the African continent, on the American soil, as well as with Caribbeans. I have lived with all three communities where somebody would say, oh, your daughter this, oh, your child this, and you're like, this one here, such a trouble. The bad child. This child is so bad. Your child is doing well. This one, my child, this one right here, so terrible. Right in front of the child. Now you go to different races, and this is from Black Sheep, right? This is from Dr. Joy, and she'll talk about, you go to different races and you tell that mother or that father, oh, your child is so intelligent, and they would be so happy and ready to tell you all the amazing stuff about their child. But with the Black mother, with the African mother, it's always, it's a bad child. It's a terrible child. This child doesn't listen. This child has too much energy. What's wrong with a child's energy? So those are things that we need to change, right? We are speaking soul destructive words in the mind of our children. And we are destroying our children, right? All the things that I believed growing up, because I was told that those are the only things I knew. I didn't know anything else. If I knew better, I would have done better, right? I wasn't doing things because I knew and I didn't want to do them. Sometimes I knew that I had to do something different, but I didn't know how to do something different, because we don't know what we don't know, which is why I always say that never look at someone and say what's wrong with them. Always say what happened to them. What happened to this person? Why is this person acting the way that they acted? Right? There's something always deeper. Emotional abuse, right? It takes us to narcissism, which is a thing, not the way that it's talked about in society. Oh, this is a narcissist. I was in another life the other day, and it's most predominantly women who have either gone through the healing journey, never went through trauma, or they've just, they're like me. We can easily talk about these things. But somebody commented that healing and trauma are overused words. Well, maybe they are overused words, but there are people still in the world, 8 billion people on earth, who are traumatized, who need somebody to talk to them, who need somebody to help them. So I always say, let's not discount the experiences of others. Emotional abuse is a thing. Emotional trauma is a thing. Narcissism is a thing. Childhood abuse is a thing. Healing is a thing. Some of us are already healed, which means we need to go back and pick others up and bring them with us. Some of us have gone so far in our healing journey, we can only be around people that have already healed. That doesn't mean somebody else is not going through it. How we speak to our children, how we speak to ourselves is very important. But if we're doing things unconsciously, if we're not conscious of the way we feel, the way we speak, who we speak to, who we surround ourselves with, we're just continuously in that cycle, that never ending cycle of, I don't know why this happened to me. I don't know why I feel like this. I don't know why this keep happening. It's a cycle that at some point you need to break it and step out of the cycle and look at it as an outsider. The reason I'm attracting the same man is because of these issues that I have. The reason that I have this pain, this void, the reason that I feel a hole in my soul, right? Is because as a child, this is what I was told who I would be. I was told I would never amount to nothing. I was told that I would not be great. That's why I do the things that I do. We emotionally abuse our children. We walk down the street and you hear a mother screaming at their child. You walk down the street, you see a mother or a father. Just yesterday, I saw that a father hitting their child at the park. People think that hitting your child is normal. Screaming at your child is normal. It is not normal. We are not built for that. Why we do that, I have no idea. Right? Post-traumatic slave syndrome. Sexual abuse. There are so many different ways somebody can be sexually abused. Either verbally, being sexualized, or actually penetrating a child, or a grown-up, or an adult. Is it our responsibility? As we are growing up to heal, yes, it is our responsibility to take accountability and the responsibility to look at ourselves. It doesn't mean blaming other people and what happened to them. It's a matter of stepping back to look at what happened to me. If you listen to, what's his name again? Professor Small, James Small, or Professor Small, he is part of the Gallagher in North Carolina. He was a professor in CUNY, City College of New York City. And he teaches Black history, African history. That's what he teaches. And he was talking about it. People are asking him questions and all of that. But I just want to paraphrase this part where he talked about sexual abuse. And he was saying that in our community, right, people that look like me, majority of the children, of the women, of the girls, of the kids who were sexually abused before the age of 15 is by relatives inside of the community, not nobody outside. And this is true. Most children start with being sexually abused emotionally. What is that? Sexualizing your child. You're not teaching your child how to be aware of the change of their body, of the way that their hormones might change, of how they would feel about themselves as they grow. The sexual exploration that those sexual urges that they will have as they are growing, which is a normal human, I don't know, evolution, just the way the body as we grow, the changes that we go through. We get that as we get older as women, right? Menopause and all of these changes that happen is the same thing, puberty. We are not teaching our children about puberty in a healthy way, but we emotionally, sexually abuse them, emotionally sexualize them. My example, my experience is my mother constantly telling me, you are going to get pregnant before you are 15. And I was so very much inspired and adamant and just be like, I am not getting pregnant at 15. Why she was saying that, I don't know, right? I was never taught about my health as a woman. I was never taught how to take care of myself. I didn't know what changes were happening in my body, right? Puberty in school, you sit down, there's the book, they're teaching you about puberty. It's all white kids images. In Africa where I went to school. It's even here in America, right? Probably in the Caribbean, because the curriculum is infused in what? White supremacy. So you're looking at the book, the teachers that's teaching us, in my experience, they cannot explain these in a healthy way because they themselves have not been taught these issues properly. So us, the children, we're there giggling. Nobody's listening. Why? Because we're tickled. At home, nobody's telling us about puberty and our body. But we believe that the children are supposed to know about their sexual health. And if the children act any way that we feel it's they're trying to sexualize themselves, we what? Curse the children out. You can whichever way that curse you hear it, CUSS, CURSE, either one. Why are you doing that? You are dirty. Or very, very young children, talking to them about, oh, you have a boyfriend now. Oh, who's your girlfriend? They're not even 10 yet. We sexualize our children. We sexually abuse our children unknowingly, and then they grow up and become who they are. And what do we say? I did not raise you to be like that. Yes, you raised the child to be like that. You might not be unconscious of what you told the child or the words that surrounded the child or what the child heard. I have mentioned several times that education and reading was my escape when I was a child, because I knew that if I stayed at home and I'm reading, everybody leaves me alone. So I'll be at home before I had my own room. And when I had my own room, I will be at home reading thick romance, romantic novels before I was 15, written by predominantly white authors. These are fiction. I didn't know these are fiction. They're just books. I needed to read something. Nobody at home was reading. And these are books that when I read them, I felt emotionally charged. I felt something sexually. Why? Because some of the books are explicit, but no one at home was checking to see what I was reading or if it was good for me. I was just reading. I would go to the library or I would buy books. I started having libraries of like books by the time I was 10. And what I was reading in these novels, I thought that was the real thing. I thought that was the way of love. I thought that's how love is supposed to be like. And so, because I was never taught what to expect, how to be like, what a woman is, who am I as a woman, what puberty is, what are the changes that are going to happen in my body, I was dating my cousin. We had a wonderful relationship because it was within the family. But even that was traumatizing, because I've mentioned here how it didn't matter who I dated and how good they were, the man was never enough for my family. So my family was constantly telling me how ugly this man is, bullying. Personally, I have never cared if a man is ugly or not. What I cared was, did he really love me? Did he really like me? This is the guy who took my virginity. This is something I've never talked about. Whoa, I used to get teased for reading books in 7th grade. Romance, yeah, we'll get teased about it. I was teased too on the African continent. So you see, so I wouldn't show that I was reading those books, but I'll keep them at home. But like I was saying, this guy, he was my cousin. I told him that I don't want to get pregnant. I don't want to lose my virginity because I have been constantly insulted by my own parents at home just because of the way I was. And even I didn't know how I was. So I would tell him, listen, I cannot, not him, let's say at that age, it didn't matter who I dated. I would always tell them, I'm not getting pregnant by you and I'm not giving you my virginity. Right? But if I knew my power, there was no need to even tell a man that. Just the way that you move, right? The man will know I can't play with this person. But I didn't know because nobody taught me, right? I was just being continuously insulted about things I had no idea what to do with. There are so many children out there who were raised like that, who are not being taught, but we traumatize them and insult them simply because of the messages and the words and the things that we were raised with and what society says that how we are supposed to be as a mother, as a woman, as a father. I don't know how that guy was raised. I don't know what he was told. I don't know if he was traumatized. I don't know what happened to him. But I think he was traumatized a little bit too, right? How he took my virginity, if I knew and if I was taught the right way to be, it wouldn't happen. And guess what? I held that pain from my 20s all the way until I gave birth to my daughter. I had my child when I was 28, simply because I was like, I'm not getting pregnant for no one. I'm 35, by the way. Right? So I held that pain. I didn't know what was sexual abuse. I didn't know there was anything called abuse. I thought everything I went through was normal. The way you raise your child, that's how they are going to be. After that guy, I thought that the only thing I was good for was my sexuality. That my worth as a woman was in my sexuality. How many women do you know who feel that way, who speak that way, who talk that way? They're not just doing it because they are looking for attention. Maybe they are subconsciously, but it's not just the attention. It's because that's the only way that they know to be. They don't know anything else. And so it was through my healing journey that I understood that I am worth more than that I just went through that. I didn't know what it was. That can be considered as sexual abuse because I did not give consent for that particular thing to happen. But at the same time, I take accountability and I take responsibility as well. Because I could have said, I'm not going to date anyone. I'm not going to be with any man. Now I can say that, but back then I didn't know. I just thought that if you tell a guy something, they're going to what? They're going to go with those words and not make it happen. I ended up hating that man. He was like, no, we're going to get married. I'm going to marry you, things like that. And maybe he meant it, right? Maybe he actually meant it. But I just emotionally could not connect with him anymore because I felt like he betrayed my trust because I trusted because he's my cousin, because it's the same family, because I told him the things that were happening to me mentally, emotionally, physically, sexually within my family. He wasn't going to do that. I hated him at that point. But as I grew up, I realized that there's a possibility even he didn't know. So now I have to take the responsibility and the accountability to heal myself and not to harbor that pain. Right? And if you're watching this, I forgive you. It's a past event. I didn't know, you didn't know. I was wrong, you were wrong. We were both wrong. Right? But also the man that I was raised with, who I spend more time with than my own father, Whoa, that's why I'm drawn to you. We share most of the same story. Yes. Yes. The issue is, now these are raw truths. These are painful truths. These are things that we don't talk about openly in society. So there are people who are walking around with this pain and don't know what to do with it or who to tell, because we can't sit with our parents and tell them. I knew 100% if I told my mother, this is what happened to me, she was going to tell me, what? It's your fault. It is when, no, it's taboo. Exactly. It is taboo. It was when I started to learn about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and sexual abuse, and just childhood trauma, that I understand that most people who have been sexually abused get blamed for their sexual abuse. Not blamed to say, take responsibility and take accountability to heal yourself, but blamed to say that by our parents at a young age. It's your fault. Why do you wear what you wear? Why do you do what you do? But then the parents themselves have never taught the child how to be. They've never parented the child. They blamed me and said I was lying and I was the black sheep. It did not matter what I told my mother at home. At some point, it was better with my grandmother. But my mother and my uncle, particularly, it didn't matter what I told them, no matter how truthful I was, to your point, right? I was lying. To them, I was always lying. No matter what I said, I was lying, right? So whoever I met, whoever I attracted, I always attracted people who I had to over-explain myself. I had to explain myself continuously. Why? Because I always had to explain myself. Because to your point, I was always blamed that I was lying, even though I was telling the truth. These things, it's not just society. It's not always somebody who was raised in a good home and then they go out and then they become bad. Something happened and we always have to figure out what happened. And to avoid that, us as parents now, it is our turn, it is our time, it is our season to break those generational curses and what? Raise healthier children, raise better children. Because if we say, this is how I was raised, and so this is how I am going to raise my children, you are just transferring whatever pain you picked up or you had as a child. You're not changing nothing for your children, for yourself, for your bloodline, for your ancestors. You're not healing your ancestors. Neglect that can come in different ways. Neglecting your child. Now that I'm doing this work and talking about these issues, I have to be consciously aware of my daughter, of not neglecting her and her emotions, right? Like when I listen to Coach Stormy, I don't know. I think it's a release. I'm having a release, cleansing, release, right? Not just from the teas and that I'm drinking and all, that could be a part of it. But I also think emotionally, mentally, spiritually, I'm having a release. The runny nose is a part of it. As I was telling a friend of mine, when I posted that video with Bob Marley's song, "The Sun Is Shining," and she was saying that cleanse yourself. Yeah, she was saying that that song has been on her mind, but she has been on my mind because every day I would have something break. My Yemaya broke, her hand broke. My Mami Wata, San Marta, I love San Marta. She's in Latin, in Afro-Latina, Latino, I don't know, in Afro-Latina, she is called La Dominador. So she's like the dominator. That one broke. Glasses are breaking every day. So my friend was telling me, you're about to jump timelines. We can talk about that, right? You're about to jump timelines, which happens where mentally, emotionally, you're ready to just be in a whole different spiritual dimension. So like I was saying, neglect. I have to be conscious of that I'm doing this work, that it takes a lot of time. It takes all day to actually build this brand, to put all of these things together, not to physically and emotionally neglect my daughter. So I would talk to her, right? Coach Stormy was saying that these 90 days from when we started, I think we're not even 1 month in the wave, or maybe we are. We're doing this for 90 days. And within this 90 days, talk to your children, talk to your family, ask them what they want. What is it they want you to do for them? Because you might not have time to cater to them like you used to. So to make them feel heard and seen, explain to them, I'm doing this, right? I might not have time to be with you, but I'm asking you to just give me the space to do this. And then when I'm done with this, you tell me whatever you want and I'll do it for you. My daughter wants the LOL dolls, the whole pack thing. It's probably what, $100? The whole thing, that's what she wants. I did ask her. But then continuously, I would tell her, I'm sorry. I am not ignoring you. It's not that I don't want to talk to you. It's just that I am so focused on what I'm doing. Sometimes when I edit videos or when I'm setting up for the live, when I'm getting dressed, I would be with her and I would talk to her about what I'm doing. Make her understand this is what I'm doing. I would show her my coaches, the people I'm working with, the campuses that I am in online, the real world, right? I'm in the real world, which is a digital campus, teaching me how to do the things that I'm doing now. When I'm listening to Andrew Tate, I will let her listen to Andrew Tate and tell her, oh, Andrew says grown-up words. We don't say bad words. We don't say bad words because the kids grow up and feel guilty for the things that they say. And even though in society, that's the way everybody talks. So we don't say bad words. We just say these are what? Grown-up words. You might not be able to say it as a child because you're still growing and you don't understand the meaning of the words. But when you understand what you are saying, then you choose if you want to use the words or not. This is this religion, this is that religion, this is that religion. This is a Christian prayer. This is the Muslim prayer, right? Kalima is from a different denomination, different religion. But when you grow up and understand what all of these are, you choose how to find your way. You choose how to find God. Emotionally connecting with our children, not being emotionally constipated. Some of us need cleansing. We need to cleanse our emotional constipation. When you cleanse your mind, you cleanse your body, you cleanse your soul, right? If you want to put in your order for the watermelon tea, send me a message, right? Because we're taking in orders. It's about to drop soon. Some people need to cleanse the more you cleanse your body. Listen, not just from a selling point, but from a personal experience. As somebody who went through it, you need to cleanse your soul to emotionally, yeah, get that promotion. Yes, right? It's about to drop. We call it, it tastes so good, I can't believe it's a cleanse. But it does something to your body too, spiritually and mentally. It's not just a product that we're saying, oh, buy what I'm selling, or this and that. But on a spiritual, emotional, mental level, cleansing does something for you. Say you don't want to buy my products. You don't want to buy from me. You don't know me. You don't trust me. You don't believe me. I will tell you what to do. I don't sell sage. Buy sage. Open your windows. Speak life to yourself. Sage from the back, because this is the back of my apartment. It goes all the way down to the bedroom, right to my bedroom. Open the windows. Light your sage. Walk around, sage the windows, sage the doors. Go all the way to the front. This is my front, and then I have the balcony. So I open the door, and then I sage everything out. I remove all negative energy from the house. Anything that's blocking me, I remove. Sage everything out. And then from the front, which is for me is here, I will sage back in. I call in all positive energy. I call in the divine energy. I call in divine. I call in God, whatever you believe in. Use clothes, right? Like I said, use clothes. Drink clothes. I just made my, I have them in my sample packs that I'm going to send to people. I just made, I'll read that in a bit, right? My sample packs. I just made this tea, this cleansing tea, and I put some herbs in it because I love the herbs. I put cloves. I put senna. Senna, you can find that at your grocery store if you don't want to buy my cleansing stuff. Boil senna, drink it. Light cloves in your home. There are so many spiritual benefits of cloves. Look it up online. I talk about star anise, right? Use star anise as well. Burn it, boil it, eat it, nutmeg. So many different things to cleanse yourself. Don't neglect your children. Honestly, because of my dad, it's hard for me to even show affection to my children. But I do love them so much. My dad didn't really tell me he loved me. I remember at age 8 praying for a man to replace my dad. Some people have never been hugged by their parents. My mother doesn't hug. She doesn't do emotional touch. My father would hug me and all of that, but it never felt right. And I'm not saying there's something wrong with him. I'm just saying that emotionally, there was no connection. There was no emotional connection. Some people say, which is why this book, I don't know, Giselle, I don't know if I showed you this book here. R.C. Blake's for, I think he's for everybody, whatever religion, right? He's a pastor. He wrote the Father-Daughter Talk. Yeah, he wrote this book, the Father-Daughter Talk. But he also has videos, endless videos where he reviewed the book several times and talk about this issue. When you go to my YouTube, I have the playlist there, the Father-Daughter Talk. He wrote that, the Queenology. These are all things that we need to read. These are things that parents need to talk to their children about, right? And one thing I love about R.C. Blake's, she is not the pastor that is very so virtuous that nothing happened to him and he never did nothing in his life. He used his experiences of the trauma he went through and how he treated women in his life to teach us women to understand the mind of a man. Is another reason why I enjoy. He was a father at 15. Yeah. He wrote me when I was in a situation with my children's father. Yes, he would do things like that, which is why personally I enjoy listening to Andrew Tate. He might trigger a lot of people, and he triggers. Why he triggers? Because most of us have not healed from these things. For me, the combination of listening to R.C. Blake's and Andrew Tate gave me an idea of the mind of a man, of how men think. Most of us, our parents have never been told these things. Some people say the girl child is for a mother to raise. But what if the mother is traumatized, emotionally unavailable, narcissistic, hurtful, in her own pain? And then they say the father is the person who needs to raise the boy child, the male child. But what if the father himself doesn't feel good about himself, emotionally unavailable, aggressive? And I'm not talking about normal aggression, because the normal aggression in a man is healthy. I'm talking about toxic aggression. And I'm not talking about masculinity in their prime. I am talking about the masculine that's traumatized. We need to emotionally connect, physically connect, selfish. We need to connect with our children, show them how to connect, show them how to love. If you listen to Shahrazad Ali, we call her Mama Shahrazad Ali from the Nation of Islam. She also triggers so many people. But then if you listen to her message, she talks about how so many women were raised in homes where they've never seen affection. They've never seen love. They've never seen physical touch, emotional connection from their mother and their father. So they don't know what to do with a man. I was that child. Even though when I was younger, I was with healthy men. But my mother broke all those relationships. Why? Because they were not good enough for her. And then I got married, and that marriage broke down, and it broke me down even more until very, very recently. Very recently, that I spoke to my ex-husband because of these videos I'm doing. I sent it to him. Many of you from the Gambia who might come across this know who he is. Very well known in the Gambia. One of the best vocalists still in the Gambia. Right? And he told me that my mother called him and my mother called his mother telling them nonsense. Why? Because the guy wasn't rich at that point. But the potential of this man, I could see it. And he respected me and loved me and took care of me. Why? Because I could see his potential and he could see that I could see his potential. So he was always looking at himself through my eyes. I didn't know this until he told me. But he gave up on the marriage, and I didn't know why he gave up on the marriage. But he gave up emotionally and just mentally because of the phone call he had from my mother. And our marriage just broke down. For years, we didn't talk. And then when we finally spoke about this, he said, at that point, I knew it wasn't your fault, but I couldn't tell you that your mother called me. And it was like, I know how crazy you are. And even though I loved it about you, I didn't want to be the one to break the relationship with your mother. Can you imagine? After my own mother broke his soul, he was still looking out for my mother and me. And was like, I couldn't tell you at that point. What we do to our children, the things we do to our children in the name of discipline and looking after them and blah, blah, blah. Meddling in the lives of our children, not showing them love, because we've been told that loving somebody is what? Weakness. Post-traumatic slave syndrome. If you read Chinua Achebe is an African. I know when I move away, Instagram can hear me, but Facebook cannot. YouTube and Facebook cannot hear me. If you read Chinua Achebe, things fall apart. Things fall apart. Chinua Achebe was an African author, African historian. In the book, he talks about Okonkwo and the way Okonkwo was raised. Okonkwo was raised with a father who is a loser and a drunk, who abuses substance, who didn't do anything with his life, who was a con artist, who took people's money. Read the book. And Okonkwo, because he had no physical, emotional, any connection, and he was just ashamed of his parents and didn't want to be like his parents, he grew up to be not just stoic, but that stoicism, that's not healthy, that painful, hurtful stoicism. He grew up with that, and he grew up abusing his family, abusing his wives, right? There are some societies that are okay with more than one wife, with a husband who has more than one woman. That's another story that we can talk about. Shahrazad Ali talks about this. If you listen to Shira 7, she talks about how at some point every man cheats. So it's better for you, the woman, to get ready. Mentally, get yourself ready. Right? But Okonkwo had wives, emotionally, physically abusing the wives. And this book was set up before slavery, right? And then it comes all the way into slavery. So African societies before slavery. And Shahrazad talks about how African societies before slavery, men, Black men were having more than one wives. Men in general, white men were having one wives and mistresses. That's another topic. But emotional and physical neglect of the child, you think that we don't see our children as human beings. We don't see our children as people who have a mind and a soul and a heart, beating heart, who have a brain, who feel. If you see your child as you see yourself, of course, given if you love yourself, you cannot treat your child that way. That takes us to the last part, which is household dysfunction. Household dysfunction, incarcerated relative, right? Maybe the father's incarcerated, the uncle is incarcerated. I don't think my father has been incarcerated. If he did, I didn't know, but I know I had uncles who were incarcerated. I have been to the jail in the Gambia to visit them. What they did, I don't remember, and I don't know, because these are things that we don't raise awareness of or talk about in the family, right? Incarcerated relative, the household dysfunction. Even though these are happening, what are you doing to prepare your child, your children, your family, mentally, emotionally, physically, right? In my neighborhood, there are so many communities, coalitions, yeah, organizations and places where they help children from incarcerated homes so they don't follow the footsteps of their parents. Incarcerated is not just the men, incarcerated women as well. Divorce in the family. But how is it being presented to the children? How are you talking to the children about it? Do you just think that the children will not know, or they're not going to feel it? A lot of us feel like our children are stupid, that they are not intelligent. They are intelligent. They are human beings. They are human beings. They are spirits. They are souls, right? They are incarnations of our ancestors, right? How you present things to your children, how you talk to your children about these issues is the most important thing you would do in your life. Mother treated violently, right? Mother treated violently. I watch my mother being abused physically, emotionally, sexually. Because if you are in a marriage that is abusive, then you're being abused in every realm. Fighting, screaming, depression, anxiety, toxic relationship. That means sexual trauma. That's a whole topic that we need to do. Sexual trauma is deep. To watch your mother go through this, it takes a child to be just ready to change their life and say, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be like this. To grow up and not to be like that. Which is why in some families, you can have two children watching the toxicity of the family. One of them grow up to continue the toxicity of the family, and the other one grow up to be completely different from the family. But as also maybe because the child is supposed the one who needs to break the generational curse for them to say, I'm never going to be like that. I'm going to be someone different. Substance abuse. Substance abuse, right? Weed is healing, but weed can be abused. Some people abuse weed. They are not using it to heal themselves. Call it what you may. Weed, marijuana, whatever it is, chalice, however name you know of it, is a healing herb, But substance abuse is using substances or anything to numb yourself. Being addicted to something, right? We see people being addicted to cocaine, to prescription drugs, to alcohol, to food, to sex, to chaos, drama, to numb how we feel, to numb the feelings, the painful feelings, the hurt that they can't verbalize, they cannot talk about. Some people gain weight, they cannot function without it, right? They cannot function. My uncle could not function without weed. On a day that we know that he did not smoke, everybody stays away from him. Those were days where he is looking for me to do something, to even sneeze, for him to take out his frustration physically and emotionally on me. So many people do that to their families. That is the substance abuse. Some people use weed to do cards and to meditate. You don't necessarily need it, but it does help some people. I have done that right before meditation or right before a prayer to just deeply dive into something. I have a small one hitter. I can't roll. I mean, I can, but I don't. Just a small one hitter. I'll just do one hit and then sit down or I'm listening to something and just zone out. But it's a prayer thing. It's personal development. Have I abused it? Yes. To numb myself. I wouldn't be able to know. But I'm also from a family that abused these substances. And we were being told that when we die, we would go to hell. But I'm looking at people in the home abusing the substance, smoking themselves to sleep or to death or whatever you want to call it. From pills to whatever you drink. And I had a friend that I really loved as a child. We grew up, we went to school together. He ended up abusing substances. I don't know where he is now. I had a cousin, a guy, older cousin, different than the one that I talked about that I was dating. This was after my relationship with the other one. But this cousin, we lived not far from each other. Right? So I'll take stuff from my home, from my grandmother, take it to their home. So when they need something at our home, they would send him. And he ended up abusing substances because of the pain and the hurt that he was going through. But then we judge people, right? Mental illness. You see your child going through all of this, but instead of you asking, what did I do to put my child on this route? We say that our children are wayward, they are bad, they are this and they are that. But who raised them? Where did they come from? From whom did they come from? I completely believe, and I have heard so many teachers talk about this too. I believe that human beings are basically good. Earl Nightingale talks about this. Muji talks about this. Lisa Nichols talks about how good humanity is. I have to believe that people are good for me to believe that I am good. I can't believe that I am good and then everybody is bad. My stomach is growling. I'm ready to eat my tamales. Right? I believe that people are good. People are good. But depending on how they were raised, of what they were told, of what happened to them, of what was done to them by the people who were supposed to look after them, the parents, the guardians, the foster family, wherever they come from. Their children turned out to be the way that they are. I remember one time a while ago, somebody was telling their parent that they don't listen to them, right? They don't feel the love. The child was telling the parent that they don't feel they are loved, they don't feel listened to. And the response of the parent was, I did my best. I did what I could do. Are you saying I'm a bad parent? And we are all like, no, nobody's saying you're a bad parent, but you need to listen to your child. I have done this with my own parents, where I'm telling them, this is how I feel. This is what's happening to me. This is the pain that I am going through. But they don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen to it. Why? Because it triggers them, because they're not ready to change, because they know something needs to change, because they know they might not be who they say that they are. Something needs to change, right? So let's recap. And this is the end of it. I have done nearly 1 hour, 30 minutes, 5 more minutes, and it will be 12:30, right? They don't, because it causes them to self-reflect. Yes, I have done the same. Yes. I was telling somebody yesterday that, because they were telling me that their children trigger them. I said that our children are mirror images of us. And our children can only do what we teach them. They cannot do what they were not taught. How would they do it? They have to learn what they do somewhere. Somebody has to teach them. They have to model it from somewhere, right? So our children are mirror images of us, and we are mirror images of our parents. Some of us, the reasons why we don't get along well with our parents is because when our parents see us, they see themselves. And then the things that we say, how we moved and how we act, we tell them about themselves, especially if you are a generational curse breaker. I posted something on my Instagram. Let me read it for you, right? And it says, let me find the post. I think it was here. It says, your family will talk crap about you while you are in the process of breaking all their generational curses. This ain't for the weak, my darling. You are amazing. And this will happen. Your family will hate you. Your parents, your mother, your father. They might not hate you, because, hate is a strong word. But they might not want to hear it, because it tells them about themselves. It tells them that you need to change. It tells them that you did it wrong. It tells them that you made a mistake. It takes a strong emotional parent to say that I made a mistake with my child. I'm ready to do better. I'm ready to connect with my child better, right? These issues, when I told my mother, I recorded a 30-minute WhatsApp audio. And she told me, I'm not interested in this. That was the last time I spoke to her. She said, I'm not interested in this. I said, okay. Then, this is the end of me and you speaking. If we die before we connect back together again, then this is goodbye. And I'm sorry, it has to be like this. But I need to figure out something for myself, because I was suicidal. recap. Types of childhood adversity. Abuse, physical, types of childhood adversity. So we talked about 3 types of ACEs. ACEs is adverse childhood experiences. Abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. That's the fourth one of the 3 types of ACEs, right? And then we go down to what? Neglect. It also has the physical side and the emotional side. Then the last one is household dysfunction, incarcerated parent, divorce, mother treated violently, mother treated badly, substance abuse, mental illness. And these are 2 books that I talked about today. One is by R.C. Blakes. R.C. Blakes will be at the Awakening. Stormy Wellington's Awakening, right? The father-daughter talk, the things that our parents should have told us. And then I talked about Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart. Things Fall Apart is a novel, is history. It shows you also about the pain of abuse from way before slavery all the way into slavery. He combined all of those. My vision in life, my goal right now in this life, because we live different lives, right? My goal is to create a home for people who never felt at home. It's to speak to the souls of women. First, women who look like me, right? Women from my community. Women who life has never been spoken to them. And my mission is to raise awareness on mental health, on spirituality, on education. Spirituality, because we are spiritual beings. But some of us don't even understand the level that religion has separated us and divided us. Muslims against Christians, Christians against Muslims, Muslims against Hindu, Hindu against this, and Buddhists against that. To the point, even on the African continent, there's also that pain of tribal wars. And wherever you go, right? You come to America, we don't see it as tribal wars because we want to show America as land of the free. But there are tribal wars between Brooklyn and the Bronx. Within Brooklyn or the Bronx or Manhattan or whatever, you have this project against that project. You have these kinds of Mexicans, these kinds of Latinas against a different kind of Latina. You have this kind of white people against that kind of Europeans and white people, these types of Black people, the Africans against the African Americans, the African Americans against the Caribbeans and Caribbean. Stupidity. And I say that humbly. We have been divided by things that don't matter. And we need to heal from these things. We need to come back together as spirit, spirituality, as a soul, as a source, as one, regardless of if you believe in Allah, if you believe in Jesus. Jesus is in the Bible. Jesus is in the Quran. If you are a Buddhist, wherever you're from, spirituality, spirit, come together as spirit, as a soul, Education, right? The last time I spoke about the miseducation of the Negro. Even though it's the miseducation of the Negro, everybody in the world has been miseducated. European people, white people, they have been miseducated. If you listen to one interview that Coach Stormy did with Grant Cardone is very raw. He speaks it like it is. He's like, we don't know. We are just raised this way. People don't say, I'm going to raise you to be a white supremacy, to think you're better than everybody. It's just the representation and the subliminal words and the things that surround you. The same thing is in every community. So can we move past these? Can we come together as one, as spirit, right? Can we truly educate ourselves and our children and our family? Can we see the spirit and the soul in ourselves and our family and people that surround us? What is going on? Right? And mental health. Can we break the mental health stigmas in our societies, in the world? Not laugh at people, not belittle people, not call people out of their names. Mental health. Something is always happening. Something happened. What happened to you? What happened to them? And not what's wrong with you. Not what's wrong with them. This is the end for today. I'm out of here. I will see you again tomorrow. I will probably change the time because I just realized that at 11 o'clock, we have trainings at the TLC headquarters every day, Monday to Friday at 11 o'clock. So I want to be a part of that training to also understand more just about the products, how I can use it for my body. So I can come and tell you what to do with the products. So this week, I'll continue with the 11 o'clock because I've already talked about it. But next week, inshallah, God willing, I will change it to 10 o'clock or later. I don't know. I'll let you know. All right? I say, peace be with you. Bye-bye.